Hello again, I am Zarkoon. This is World of Warships Legends. On the screen here, you see my build for Lev Galler, and I am using him as my commander on the Tier 6 Russian battleship Sinop. I hope I am pronouncing the name of this ship correctly. I don't know. Anyway, I've got 2 games for you in this ship, and I've got quite a bit to say about it. This first one here is on the map Straight, Capture the Base mode, and I think this is probably the best that I've done in this ship so far. I've played about 10-15 games in it, I think, and I've got a good feel for it. So, while I'm getting into position here, let's talk a little bit about the ship and its stats. Now, you'll notice immediately, it has 65,000 hit points, which gives it the largest HP pool at the tier across all of my builds, including the Colorado with Sims, which has about 5,000 fewer hit points. So that's a mark in its favor, I guess. It's also got 9 406mm guns, same 16-inch gun size that is found on the Colorado, Nagato, and Nelson at the tier. And the guns do hit hard. And you'll notice, there's 9 of them. Colorado and Nagato each have 8. They're spread down the ship in a line. This ship has 2 turrets super firing in the front with 3 guns each. So it's kind of, set up similar to the Iowa with that other rear turret in the back. And now we take a shot here at a Nagato. We'll see what this does as it hits, and it does chunk him pretty good for 14k. So these guns do hit hard. Now, they do have a firing range of 16.4 kilometers on my build, but I'm going to be changing Galler's last skill in the 4th row of skills to Emergency Specialist rather than the one that increases the range. So that's going to reduce it by 0.3 kilometers to 16.1. But either way, it's outranged by every other battleship at this tier across all of my builds. If I were to use Flammable Cannoneer on Galler, it would get it up, or it would get the range up to about 17 or so kilometers, but I would not recommend doing that, and I'll talk more about why I wouldn't recommend doing that in the second game in this video. Let's just say that this thing is highly susceptible to HE spam. So, no matter what though, you're probably going to be outranged by every other battleship at the tier. Now, the guns, interesting thing about these shells on this ship. The HE shell damage, max HE shell damage, is 6,026 with my Galler build here. And it has a 41% chance to start fire, which is pretty comparable to the King George V, weirdly enough. Same fire starting chance, although my King George V build enjoys an HE alpha strike that's higher by about 1k. AP shells do a maximum of 12,950 damage, which is right on par with the Colorado and Nagato. These guns do reload in 33 seconds, and it takes 50 seconds for them to turn 180 degrees. So that's a slower reload by a couple seconds compared to the Nagato and Colorado, and it's pretty close turret traverse speed to the Nagato. You see there on that Nagato we score a nice citadel. That probably hurt, but the turrets rotate a lot slower than they do on the Colorado. Max speed on this ship, 27 knots. 960 meter turning circle radius and 12.9 second rudder shift time. That makes it significantly faster than the Colorado or the Nagato. It's actually one of the faster ships at the tier. The turning circle, though, is the biggest at the tier by a lot. It is Iowa-esque. And the rudder shift is fine. Could probably be made better by the rudder shift mod, and I might go that way. Haven't decided yet. So, that's pretty much all there is to the stats. I'll comment a little bit about how these guns perform now as we approach basically the entire enemy team here. We've got an enemy destroyer in our base, but it looks like the majority of our team is going back to protect it, leaving just me and the friendly Gneisenau to take on all of these red ships over here. Luckily, they aren't too inclined to shoot at me for whatever reason. I mean, a couple of them are. And that's good for me. Let them shoot at the Gneisenau because this ship, it's interesting. It does have a lot of hit points. And I think that might be done to make up for how, I don't want to say how squishy the ship is, but for how squishy the ship is. It seems to me like it gets chunked quite a bit, chipped, whatever you want to call it, by by AP shells from enemy battleships, especially 16-inch AP shells from, your Colorados, Nagatos, Iowas, Amagis. Not that I run into Amagis very often anymore, but it does seem to get hit pretty hard by the same caliber AP shell guns. And that's to say nothing about how susceptible it seems to be to the HE spam. You'll notice my Galler build is mostly concerned with the defensive skills that Galler has. And you could make the case that Kedrov is the better commander, but compare the build that I have on Galler to Kedrov, and ostensibly they're the same, or they would be the same based on how I would set up Kedrov. And I've got more promotion orders poured into Galler anyway, so he's the way that I'm going at this point. I'll probably try Kedrov out at a later time and see if that improves anything. Kedrov's base skill is to increase the turret traverse speed, which is probably pretty helpful for this ship. Anyway, you see we've got 127,000 damage right now, 3 kills Confederate medal here, and we've only got the Queen Elizabeth left, so this game is going to be wrapping up pretty shortly. We haven't taken a whole lot of damage yet. We've used one of our repair party consumables. You'll notice it only comes with 2 stock, and getting that third one might be a good argument for using Kedrov rather than Galler here, but I think the reason it gets so few repair parties is because of its quick cycling damage control consumable, which is also limited. It starts off with 3 base, and then you can get that up using the correct skills on either Galler or Kedrov. And you probably want to do that, get that extra damage control, just in case. We took out that Queen Elizabeth there. That ends this match. And we do finish with 144,000 damage, number 1 on the leaderboard. And we're going to jump into the next match here right now. And you're going to see just how squishy this ship is and how susceptible it is to the HE spam. Anyway, though, the damage control and the limited amount of damage control consumables, that is the quirk on these Russian battleships. They have quick cycling damage controls, but that's balanced by the limited number of charges. Now, these damage controls on my build here, they reset in 37 seconds, which is, of course, faster than any other damage control consumable on any other battleship. And I don't know if that 37 seconds is base or if it's influenced by the commander's skills. I'd have to check. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about these guns before we get in here. See, we get a nice citadel on that Edinburgh. Now, I've heard that these guns lose their accuracy at longer ranges, but become deathly accurate at close ranges. And I don't know if that's the case or not. They seem to maybe be a little bit less accurate at longer ranges, say anything in excess of 13 kilometers. And of course, they do need to be aimed correctly in order to hit anything closer than that. So don't aim how I just did against that New Orleans. Let's just forget that happened. But, you know, at the closer ranges, they do seem to have a tighter dispersion and hit where you're pointing them, which makes the ship a lot more dangerous the closer it gets. And if you take a look at the shell arcs when I fired these shells, they do seem to be pretty flat, which seems to be a thing among the ships in the Russian lines, you know, with the cruisers and the destroyers, and I guess now the battleships. And I feel like these shells seem to fly through the air really, really fast. I suspect that this ship has a very quick shell velocity, which helps with the penetration. In the overview tab of the ship, it does say that this ship enjoys superior AP shell penetration, and I have capitalized on that by using Jajard as an inspiration on my commander here, which I think is probably a good way to go. But the thing about needing to be at closer ranges is you are more likely to be shot at by the enemy. And we have a Kutuzov here. And of course the Kutuzov is one of those evil, nasty HE spammers, along with all the other Russian cruisers, that has currently changed the meta of the game and made it a little bit more difficult to be a battleship captain by all the fires that they light on you. Now, I do believe, according to the best information I can find, thanks to Boots Normandy on T-Bull's Discord, that this ship has 26 millimeters of bow and deck armor, which I believe means it will be susceptible to taking HE shell damage from your ships like Kutuzov and New Orleans and Baltimore and Charles Martel and Algerie and all of those HE spamming ships. So they hit you in the deck from farther away where their shells are coming down vertically. They're probably going to pen, probably going to do damage, and they're going to light fires, and your HP is going to evaporate quickly, and you're going to have to manage how often you use the damage control since you have such a limited number of them, plus your limited number of heals. Again, only 2 repair parties come stock with this ship. You can increase that with Kedrov, and I mean the heals are nothing really special. They're just your typical battleship heal, and I think the lack of heals actually kind of hurts this ship a little bit. I find what I've been doing mostly is using the heals earlier in the game and then saving the damage controls for later in the game when I get set on fire and that kind of thing. And oh, Iowa, what are you doing? well, that's what happens. Obviously, these guns punch really, really hard. They can absolutely decimate broadside battleships, broadside cruisers, and it's about time for us to erase this Kutuzov from existence. He's lit a number of fires on us, and we have had to use damage control a couple times here. He's got another fire on us again, and, I've about had enough of his ways, so goodbye. And, alright, so, there's the Kutuzov gone. Now, we are angled at this Iowa, not incredibly steeply. You see, we don't really have that third turret on target. And observe this next shot that the Iowa lands on us here. Actually, we've opened up our angle perhaps a little bit too much. Iowa's rear guns come for us. We're closing the angle, and they do chunk us there for about 8k. We, of course, hit the Iowa much harder than he hit us. But, it seems to me like these AP shells do a lot of chip damage to this ship, even at tighter angles than that. But, you have no problem taking out Iowas or whatever that give you a broadside. Only a New Orleans left. We're going to take him out here with this next shot and end this video. So, there's a look at the Sinop for you. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.